20 degrees below average in some cities tomorrow. And honestly, that number alone should get your attention. More than 30 degrees of temperature difference will separate major cities sitting just a few states apart. Two completely different seasons are about to happen at the exact same time across the United States. And yeah, that is a wild setup. So, if you have been wondering why your weather feels nothing like what your cousin 3 states over is getting, this is exactly why. A major shift in the jet stream is literally carving the country in half right now. On one side, you have got a big ridge of high pressure building over the western United States, and that thing is pumping warm air like crazy. On the other side, Arctic air is just parked over the east, not going anywhere, and it is making life pretty miserable for a lot of folks. So depending on where you are waking up tomorrow, it is either going to feel like early spring or the dead of winter, and there is really no in between. Now, before we get into all the details, drop your city in the comments right now so I know where you are watching from. Seriously, I want to see which side of this weather divide you are sitting on, because the contrast is going to blow your mind. Alright, let us start out west where things are looking real nice. Los Angeles is kicking things off with afternoon highs in the upper 60s. Sunshine all day. Just a gorgeous setup out there. San Diego is right there with it, also sitting in the upper 60s with clear skies and that classic Southern California vibe. And honestly, if you are in LA or San Diego right now, you are basically living in a whole different country compared to what the East Coast is dealing with. Moving up the coast, San Francisco is warming up nicely, with highs pushing into the low 60s under mostly dry conditions. Not too shabby for early February, and if you are out there, enjoy it because the Bay Area does not always get days like this. Now, Portland is going to see some clouds hanging around with highs near the low 50s, and maybe a stray shower here and there. Seattle is pretty similar, staying cool but manageable with highs in the low 50s and some classic Pacific Northwest cloud cover. So if you are in the PNW, nothing crazy. Just your typical early February kind of day. Maybe grab a light jacket and you are good. Now here's where it gets interesting. Denver is getting a massive temperature jump with highs climbing all the way into the 60s. That is way above average for this time of year. And honestly, it is going to feel more like late March than early February. Salt Lake City is also feeling that warmer push with highs near the upper 50s, which is a solid bump from where they have been. And Phoenix, well, Phoenix stays Phoenix. Comfortable sunshine with highs in the low 70s. Nothing to complain about there. Las Vegas is looking pretty sweet too. Highs near the mid-60s with plenty of sunshine. So if you are out there hitting the strip, the weather is on your side. Albuquerque is also riding this warm wave with highs in the upper 50s, which is a nice little treat for New Mexico. So across the board, the entire western half of the country is just vibing right now. And that ridge of high pressure is the reason why. It is acting like a giant shield, blocking any cold air from sliding in and just letting the warmth build day after day. Alright, now let us slide into the center of the country. And this is where things start to get a little more complicated. The Central Plains are sitting right on that battle line between the warm air out west and the cold air locked in across the east. Dallas is going to be on the milder side, with highs reaching the upper 50s to near 60 degrees. So not bad at all for North Texas. Fort Worth is basically riding the same train. Upper 50s. Some clouds. Maybe a breeze, but overall a pretty decent day. Houston will see clouds building through the day with highs in the mid-60s. And a few scattered showers are possible by the afternoon. San Antonio is looking comfortable too. Highs near the low 60s, with partly cloudy skies and nothing major to worry about. Now, if you are in Austin, you're getting a similar deal. Low 60s, some clouds, and just a generally mild kind of day. Oklahoma City warms up real nice with highs in the low 60s. And that actually makes it one of the warmer spots on the entire map tomorrow. But here's the thing. You do not have to go far north before you start feeling that colder air creeping in. Kansas City is going to be noticeably cooler with highs only in the 40s as that colder air mass hangs just to the north. And if you are sitting in Kansas City thinking, well, the 40s are not that bad, just wait until you hear what Chicago is dealing with. Chicago stays firmly on the cold side, with highs struggling to even reach the mid-20s. And the wind is going to make it feel way worse. We are talking wind chills in the teens, or even single digits at times. So yeah, Chi-Town is getting wrecked tomorrow. And that right there is the perfect example of how sharp this temperature divide really is. Oklahoma City in the 60s, Chicago in the 20s, and they are not even that far apart on a map. It is just nuts. All right, now let us head into the upper Midwest because this is where the cold really starts to bite. Minneapolis is going to be absolutely brutal with highs only in the teens and wind chills dropping near or below zero at times. If you are in the Twin Cities, I am not going to sugarcoat it. Tomorrow is a stay inside kind of day if you can manage it. Milwaukee is not much better. Highs barely cracking the 20s with a biting wind coming off Lake Michigan. And for anyone in Green Bay or the rest of northern Wisconsin, we are looking at highs in the low 20s with scattered light snow possible. Des Moines sits somewhere in that cold zone too. Highs in the upper 20s to low 30s, which is definitely below average. So yeah, the upper Midwest is locked in a deep freeze right now. And honestly, it is not looking like that changes anytime soon. Now, as we push farther east, the cold does not let up. It actually gets even more stubborn. Detroit will deal with highs in the mid-20s, along with a chance of light snow showers through the day. Cleveland is stuck in the same boat. Highs in the 20s, with lake effect clouds keeping things gray and gloomy. Pittsburgh remains locked in the cold as well. Mid-20s for highs and below average temperatures, just continuing to hang on. Columbus and Indianapolis are riding the same pattern, upper 20s to low 30s. Not fun at all. And Buffalo, oh man. Buffalo is in the thick of it with highs barely hitting 20 and lake effect snow bands always lurking nearby. So if you are anywhere in the Great Lakes region, just know that winter has absolutely no intention of letting go right now. Hey, real quick, if you are enjoying this breakdown and want to stay on top of how this pattern develops, go ahead and hit that follow button. I put these forecasts out regularly, and the way this jet stream is behaving, there is going to be a lot more to talk about in the coming days. All right, let us keep it moving and head into the Northeast because the cold has a firm grip up there too. New York City will be cold, but at least dry with highs only in the low 30s and a chilly breeze coming off the water. Boston stays even colder with highs in the upper 20s, and there is a chance for some lingering snow showers in spots nearby. Hartford and Providence are in that same range, upper 20s to low 30s, cloudy skies, and just a raw feel to the air. Now further north, places like Burlington, Vermont, and Portland. Maine are even colder with highs barely reaching the low 20s. And those are the spots where wind chills could actually dip below zero at times. So if you are up there, layers are your best friend. Down in the mid-Atlantic, it is not quite as extreme, but it is still well below where you would normally be this time of year. Washington, D.C. reaches the mid-30s tomorrow, which sounds okay until you realize that is still running about 10 degrees below normal. Philadelphia will see highs in the low 30s with mostly cloudy skies and that damp kind of cold that just cuts right through you. Baltimore stays in that same zone. Temperatures barely climbing out of the 30s and not a lot of sunshine to help warm things up. Richmond slides in around the upper 30s, a touch milder, but still noticeably below average for early February in Virginia. And Norfolk is sitting near 40 degrees with clouds and a cool breeze off the coast. So even coastal Virginia is not catching a break. Now here is something a lot of people are not expecting. The Southeast is not really escaping this chill either. Charlotte is only reaching the upper 40s, which for North Carolina in February might not sound crazy, but it is below where they should be. Atlanta is looking at highs near the low 50s with clouds hanging around, and that is going to feel pretty raw for the ATL. Nashville is in the mid-40s. Memphis gets near 50, and both of those are a little underwhelming for what you would expect this time of year. And New Orleans will be in the mid-50s to near 60, which is not terrible, but even NOLA is running a bit cool for the season. So the cold is not just a northern thing tomorrow. It is reaching well down into the south and making its presence known. Now, let us talk about Florida because I know a lot of you down there think you are safe. And well, not exactly. Jacksonville will only reach the mid-50s, which for Florida in February is pretty disappointing, honestly. Orlando stays in the mid-50s to near 60 with a cool start in the morning that might actually have some folks reaching for a sweater. Tampa is similar, low 60s, a bit of a breeze, and just not the warm, sunny Florida postcard kind of day. Miami is warmer than the rest of the East Coast, no doubt, But even at highs in the low 70s, it is still below average. And for anyone in the Keys, you are probably the closest thing to comfortable on the eastern side of the country with highs in the mid 70s. But here's the thing. When Miami and the Keys are running below normal, you know this cold pattern means business. All right, so now let us zoom out and look at the big picture, because the temperature story is honestly the headline of the day. Many eastern cities are running 15 to 25 degrees below their seasonal average, and that is not just a one-day thing. That kind of cold stacking up day after day really starts to wear on people, and you can feel it in the energy bills too. Meanwhile, out west, Denver sitting in the 60s, while Chicago is in the 20s, really tells you everything you need to know about this setup. It is like two totally different countries are experiencing two totally different seasons, and they are separated by just a few hundred miles. And this is all because of where that jet stream is sitting. It is the whole ballgame right there. That deep dip in the jet stream over the east is basically an open door for Arctic air to keep pouring south. And the ridge out west keeps acting like a wall that blocks the cold and forces warm air to build higher and higher. Now let us talk precipitation, because even though the temperature story is the big deal, some of you are going to see some action. The Pacific Northwest could pick up some light rain showers, especially around Seattle and Portland. Nothing heavy, but keep the umbrella close. Parts of the upper Midwest may see scattered light snow, especially across Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, but accumulations will be light. Around the Ohio Valley, a weak system could bring some light snow or flurries, mainly across Indiana, Ohio, and parts of West Virginia. This is not a major storm by any means, but if you are driving through those areas, just be aware of slick spots on the road. The Northeast may see a few snow showers too, mainly in interior areas away from the coast, but most major cities stay dry. And the South stays mostly dry outside of a few spotty showers near the Gulf Coast. So at least you have got that going for you. Overall, tomorrow is not a blockbuster storm day. It is really all about that temperature divide. All right, now here's the part that I think a lot of you are going to want to hear. What happens after tomorrow? Because this pattern does not flip overnight, and that is both good news and bad news depending on where you are. The west stays relatively warm as that ridge holds strong for at least another several days. So places like Denver and Phoenix keep cruising. The east, on the other hand, keeps the door wide open for more cold air to slide south through the rest of the week. That means more freezing mornings and below average afternoons for a huge chunk of the Midwest and Northeast. And if you are already tired of it, I get it, but the atmosphere is just not ready to let the east warm up yet. Now here's the really interesting part, and this is what I have been keeping my eye on for the bigger picture. There are signs of a disturbance developing high up in the atmosphere near the Arctic, something called a stratospheric warming event. Now that sounds super technical, but basically what it means is that a sudden burst of warmth high up can disrupt the polar vortex. When that happens, the jet stream slows down and gets wavier, which makes it way easier for cold air to drop south and just sit there. So if you think this cold stretch in the east is bad now, there is a real possibility it could get reinforced or even extended. We are not saying that is a lock by any means, but it is something we are watching very closely over the next couple of weeks. And honestly, these kinds of atmospheric signals are what separate a regular cold snap from something that sticks around for a long time. Now, I am curious, for those of you in the cold zone, how are you holding up so far this winter? Has this been the worst stretch of cold you have dealt with in a while? Or is this just business as usual for your area? Let me know in the comments, because I always love hearing how people across the country are experiencing these patterns firsthand. And for my folks out west, do not get too comfortable, because these ridges do eventually break down. When that happens, the west could see a return to cooler and wetter conditions, especially across the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. But for right now, tomorrow specifically, the west is winning and the east is just hanging on. So let us bring it all home and recap the key takeaways for tomorrow. If you are in the west or parts of the southern plains, you get a real break from winter. Enjoy the mild air and the sunshine. If you are in the Midwest, the Great Lakes, or the Northeast, winter is absolutely not done with you. Not even close. The Southeast and Florida are cooler than you would expect, so do not be surprised if you need a jacket even down in Orlando or Atlanta. And the precipitation picture is pretty quiet overall. Just some light snow in the Midwest and Northeast, and light rain out in the PNW. The real headline is that temperature divide, and it is one of the sharpest splits we have seen in a while. Alright, so before I let you go, I want to ask you something, because I am always trying to make these forecasts more useful for you. Are there specific cities or regions you want me to break down in more detail next time? Drop them in the comments and I will try to cover them. Whether it is a smaller city that never gets mentioned or an area you think deserves more attention, I want to hear it. Because at the end of the day, these forecasts are for you, and the more I know about where you are, the better I can make them. Weather setups like this one can lead to bigger systems down the road, especially as we get deeper into the back half of February. We are going to keep tracking how this temperature divide and the jet stream pattern develop, because things can shift fast. So for now, bundle up if you are in the cold zone and soak it in if you're lucky enough to be in the warm zone. Tomorrow really shows how one country can have two completely different seasons happening at the exact same time. Stay safe out there, everybody, and I will catch you in the next one when we see how this whole pattern plays out.